Yeah.
All righty. I hereby call the City Council meeting for August 8th to order. Pledge of Allegiance, we usually rotate around the dais, but I'm asking if perhaps Troop 42 would lead the group in the Pledge of Allegiance tonight.
I vote for that.
No, second.
Pledge allegiance
To the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you very, very much. Linda, roll call.
Okay, Councilmember King.
Here.
Councilmember Mercado.
Here.
Councilmember Sanchez.
Here.
Vice Mayor Andresick.
Here.
And Mayor Zero.
Here. Thank you. Do we have any reordering of the agenda?
No reordering this evening.
All righty. Our next item is public comments. This is when anybody in the audience who wishes to get up and spend 3 minutes talking about anything they want to talk about is welcome, on the agenda or not on the agenda. I do have one public speaker, Daniel Lehr. Step on up.
Good evening, and my name's Daniel Lehr. I'm the Executive Director and founder of the Central Coast Film Society, and I was not able to be here at the last meeting. Riza was so gracious in presenting for me while I was attending to a ill family, but I just want to say thank you on behalf of the organization for everything that you're doing to help support us. It's absolutely was amazing to watch, and I just cannot be more grateful. We're going to be having lots of great events coming up in the near future, thanks to Buellton. And Buellton actually was my very first home. I just want to point that out. When I was born, came out of Marion Hospital, came straight down here to 522 Mary Sue. I'll always remember that address. But I also wanted to point out that we do have another event, though, with Central Coast Film Society. It's not in Buellton, but it does directly affect Buellton. We'll be showing Star Wars, the original, up in the Clark Center in Arroyo Grande. That's going to be on August 24th. But we're going to have Country Garden Catering with Pam Nico. She's going to be coming up there to do the catering. And also, so that means that 25% of their profit goes to the Buellton Senior Center. So that event is still going to be benefiting Buellton. So please come up and enjoy. So thank you again so much for everything.
Thank you very much. Thank you for supporting Buellton, too. Public comment? Step on up. Peggy Brierton.
I just got it.
Good evening, Mayor Sierra and council members. Peggy Brierton, 225 Terrace Lane. I was at a meeting today at the Santa Barbara County Planning Commission, and about 2 cannabis permits that were being appealed. And I wanted to thank personally Mr. Wolf for appearing. Kathy Vreeland also came, and it was really, really important to the Planning Commission. I think it kind of helped things considerably. I really appreciate that. I have one suggestion, possible agenda item for future discussion would be a nuisance ordinance when it comes to cannabis odor. We can do a nuisance ordinance, and the county would recognize that. So it's something maybe you want to consider. Thank you.
Thank you very
Oh, and
much.
that was postponed for September 13th. That's coming back to the Planning Commission. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay. Any other public comments? Then I'm closing public comment. Moving on to our consent calendar. We have 2 items tonight. Minutes of July 25th, 2019 City Council meeting, and list of claims to be approved and ratified for payment to date for fiscal years 2018-19 and 2019-20. Gentlemen?
Move for approval.
Second.
Linda?
Okay, Councilmember King.
Aye.
Vice Mayor Andresick.
Aye.
Councilmember Mercado.
Aye.
Councilmember Sanchez.
Aye.
And Mayor Zero.
Aye. Thank you. Okay, public hearings? None tonight? Alrighty. We get to move on, or excuse me, presentations. We have a proclamation tonight. This is the best part of the job. Actually, Vice Mayor Andresick suggested this. He was amazed at the work that Troop 42 had done on Flag Day, putting up the 50 state flags along Avenue of Flags, and suggested that we recognize this amazing troop who does so much for our community. So, if you gentlemen would step up and over towards the board, I have a proclamation to read. And Lana too, of course. Pardon?
I said ladies and gentlemen.
Ladies and gentlemen, I said Lana. All right.
That's a lineup.
So, this is a proclamation recognizing Boy Scouts of America, BSA, Buellton Scout Troop 42, an amazing group of young residents. Whereas, in recognition of the contributions of BSA Buellton Scout Troop 42 for creating a program for young people that builds character, teaches responsibility, and develops physical fitness. And whereas Troop 42 routinely conducts community service in Buellton, such as participating in local patriotic events like the 50th anniversary of the Avenue of Flags, helping set up and clean up for the Christmas tree lighting ceremony, the Buellton Barbecue Bonanza, and Earth Day. And whereas the council would like to specifically thank Troop 42 for volunteering to install all 50 state flags on the Avenue of Flags for Flag Day on June 14th, which was done under the direction of Scoutmaster John De Leon, Assistant Scoutmasters Nana Gundry, Bill Patty, Chuck Sorensen, Rob Tesdall, Mark Williams, and current Scouts Jackson Davenport, Logan De Leon, Chris Gundry, Ashton Salas, Cole Snodgrass, Aiden Tesdall, and Kaylin Williams. And whereas prior members of Troop 42, did I blow it?
No, it's okay.
Callan? I apologize. Okay. Whereas prior members of Troop 42 have completed their Eagle Scout projects in Buellton, which include a covered bulletin board at the San Ynez Valley Botanic Garden, a covered bench and bulletin board at Paws Park, installation of neighborhood library boxes, and installation of benches and planters in front of Oak Valley Elementary School. You guys are very, very busy gentlemen. We appreciate it. Whereas participation in community and civic affairs helps to build future leaders by integrating educational events with lifelong values, which helps young people develop into conscientious achievers and productive adults. Now therefore I, Holly Sierra, Mayor of the City of Buellton, on behalf of the Buellton City Council, hereby recognize BSA Buellton Scout Troop 42 for their continued community service and dedication to young people in Buellton. Gentlemen, Callan, thank you very, very much. Would you like to say anything?
Sure, just as a Scoutmaster, I'm relatively new to the troop. However, I've been in the Valley for quite some time. Mr. Sorensen is the one that's the primary Scoutmaster for the troop. However, he's kind of stepped down over the last several years. We're looking forward to many more years with the city. You know, our commitment is to actually help out the city and help out the Valley as far as community service-wise. So we're always here to try and help out. And we're always working with Miss Kathy Vreeland as far as future events and any other help that we need to get. So on behalf of Troop 42 and the other adults and the Scouts that are here, we appreciate this very much. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Callan, I know you. You're my neighbor. I know. Thank you very, very much.
Thank you very much. Great group.
I can get it to you later. Okay. Public hearings, there are none. Council member comments, items. Councilmember Sanchez, any comments or items?
No,
Okay.
thank you.
Vice Mayor, any comments or items?
Item.
Item?
I've been meeting, I received a request from a lady named Kathy regarding city project she would like to propose. I don't know if anyone else got the email, but she wrote this letter to me, and I think it meant for the council, and I thought it was worthy enough to consider for future presentation down the road. She says, I've been meeting with other city council members and city managers in your region who are interested in moving the needle on completing energy, renewable, water and utility improvements in the cities without burdening taxpayers or planning for a lengthy budget. With municipalities challenged to do more with less, Smart Watt is providing a program for California municipalities that brings an end-to-end budget-neutral financial solution to tackle the much-needed energy efficiency, renewable energy, water conservation, and utility commodity projects. And I have a copy. I printed one. If we had consensus, perhaps we would consider. Staff could look at it and then decide if it's a worthy project to coincide with what we have. I'm not sure if Rose got one of these or not.
Yes, staff did receive it as well.
Okay. Well, maybe you might be able to address it right now and put it to bed or move it forward.
We haven't looked into it more closely.
Yeah, it sounded good, so that's why I thought.
And they have kind of just really general information on their website, but
Okay. I didn't go to
the way those projects works, they have the cost estimate for whatever the work is, and then we pay them back. We continue paying
Right.
whatever our utility costs stay.
Okay.
And then the reduction, they get a portion of that, and that's how it's paid over. And there's a certain amount of time.
And maybe
that-
Scott said that.
yeah.
I've done a little bit of research into it.
Experience with it.
That's what I'm finding. I don't have any
Okay.
experience with it, but it is something that, from what I've been digging into, tends to work very well for larger organizations.
Always the
But it's
case.
worth looking into here
Sure.
to see if there's some savings. to
Might
be
be
seen.
efficiencies of scale.
Yeah.
Thank you. Okay.
Look into it. Councilmember King, any comments or items?
No, ma'am.
Councilmember Mercado, none? I do have one item I'd kind of like to have brought back. We had Mimi Alexander come in at our last meeting and talk about Avenue of Flags and the condition on Avenue of Flags, how a lot of things have deteriorated. At one point, council had made an offer to business owners to go in and work with them to perhaps pay a portion of repairs, and I'd like to have that checked out and brought back again for discussion, if that's okay. Thank you, gentlemen, very, very much. Thank you, Lana. Thanks.
Sounds like a good idea.
Thank you.
Is that just to see what possibilities to, I mean, we have the whole vitalization of Avenue of Flag, but in the meantime, yeah, it's okay?
Bringing it back.
I've had some preliminary discussions with our planning director and our code enforcement officer regarding what's going on out there, and some activities have started already, but as far as longer-term programs for revitalization and cleanup of the avenue, we're looking into our options on that. We'll bring that back to the city council.
Thank you very much. All righty. Do we have any written communications tonight?
We do have one written communication. I received an email earlier this week that I thought was worth bringing to the city council, or it was actually last week. This is from Mr. Larry Rankin, and he writes to us, "The barbecue at River Park was a magnificent Saturday afternoon. The city of Buellton is most kind for hosting this event each year for its citizens. Everything was so delightful. But most of all, I want to thank all the people who prepared and served all of that food. They are all amazing. Thanks to others who brought a side dish. Really appreciate all the hard work for making it a fabulous and delightful afternoon. I know I'm writing for others who feel the same way. Thank you again."
Very nice. Very, very nice. Thank you. That it was a nice share. Committee reports. Do we have any committee reports? No? All righty. Vice Mayor Andrasik and I had lunch with CAG today for their annual evaluation, but didn't really discuss any, what was going on with CAG. So,
No, I think it was good to
yeah,
have them come out and visit.
yearly update, yeah.
Yearly update.
Moving on to business items, agenda item number 4 is discussion and direction regarding allowing cannabis testing / analysis facilities and CBD product sales. Mr. Wolf.
Thank you, Madam Mayor, members of the City Council. This item is being brought back to you after a request on May 23rd. Staff was directed at that time to bring back a discussion item to discuss the potential for allowing cannabis testing labs within the city and to address the sale of certain types of cannabidiol or CBD type products at retail stores within the city. So we'll break this report up into two separate sections. First of all, dealing with the laboratory testing, the second one dealing with CBD. So as the City Council is aware, the City Council adopted an ordinance to address commercial cannabis activities. And with the exception of delivery services, all other commercial cannabis activities within the city have been prohibited. One of those categories of commercial cannabis activity is testing and analysis laboratories. It is categorized as a commercial cannabis activity, however, it does not involve the retail sale or distribution of cannabis products. Instead, these types of facilities focus on analysis of samples of cannabis and cannabis products that are being grown and produced to ensure that they meet state purity standards. The laboratories themselves are heavily regulated. They have accreditation requirements which are among the highest accreditation requirements for any facilities in the world. That's not to say that they're without their problems. There are issues that come up from time to time with testing laboratories, but those problems tend to be more internal issues regarding documentation of testing results as opposed to problems with the distribution or the handling of the controlled substances. So this is one of those commercial cannabis activities that if the City Council is interested in pursuing or looking into further the allowance of this, it would require an amendment to the municipal code, in particular the commercial cannabis regulation section of the municipal code, to allow this. It can be done very narrowly to tailor it only to the testing and analysis laboratories. We'll leave this open for discussion, and the City Council can give staff direction as it will. We can do that now, or if you'd like, I can discuss the CBD now as well, and you can discuss it all as you'd like.
Why don't
We just do one at a time?
Yeah. You would prefer
I'd
one
like
at
to
a
talk
time?
about the laboratory deal and see what
Then
the...
let's do one at a time. Do we have any questions about it?
I was wondering if they have a laboratory that's going to do the cannabis, it's just going to be, I wonder if it's going to be just exclusive to the cannabis, or is it going to be, somebody's going to come and start a big laboratory here, and then that'll be part of it, to attract the business and attract the, I think.
I'm not sure how that works. A lot of that's going to be handled by the state as far as their licensing requirements for the laboratories. It does require a state cannabis license, and there are restrictions as to what other types of activities can go on when you're dealing with this license. The primary restriction that I'm aware of is that if a person holds a license to operate a cannabis testing and analysis laboratory, they cannot hold any other type of retail cannabis or commercial cannabis license, which I won't get into it. That's just the state requirement. That's the state requirement. There's some history there, but that ensures a separation between the cannabis producers and the cannabis analysis. But as far as whether they can operate laboratory analysis or laboratory that will analyze other products, I don't know of any prohibition on that. It's a possibility. But the only thing that the city would really be involved in regulating would be the cannabis component of that.
Any other questions?
Not so much a question. Oh,
go ahead.
not so much a question. In doing a little research on this, I was reading an article in the Wall Street Journal this week, and they were saying not just in Colorado, but some other places that they've legalized the marijuana, they are having some quality issues, and so they are now trying to backtrack and get a laboratory to analyze some of the stuff that's questionable, most of it because of the open growers who are not following the rules and stuff like that. So if that would make it not so much a better product, but a better quality, and making sure that our citizens and everybody else who are partaking in this, then I think it would behoove us to make sure that we on the forefront of it. I just think that with the state regulations and what we could narrow it down to, it might be a big byproduct of it. So I just think that it's something to look at and look into.
Now, I know Jamie is here to talk about the second part of this option, and I don't have any other speakers about the cannabis testing. If we have anybody from the audience who would like to get up and speak, otherwise we'll come back for more comments and direction.
I do have a question. There's also state-run facilities, correct?
I don't know if the state of California is actively involved in the type of analysis that would be, certainly state laboratories could do that. They are probably more involved in the regulations, so they're going and doing spot checks of the laboratories or taking samples of product that are on the shelf and making sure that the laboratories that are out there testing it are doing what they're supposed to do. But I'm not sure that the state is set up to do testing for the entire commercial growing and production operation that's here and is growing. I understand that there are a shortage of these types of facilities in California. To Councilmember Mercado's part, I couldn't guarantee that product that was tested at a laboratory here in Buellton would necessarily be distributed locally here in Buellton, or that product that was distributed here would have been through this particular laboratory. But given the concentration of growers that we're seeing both in the area right now and seeking to come to the area, there would certainly be a market for that within the city here, should the city council decide to do that.
Madam Mayor, I have one more question. Not to put you on the spot, but did you find out what the problem was with the documentation that you described?
Well, the articles that I read seem to indicate that the documentation problems had to do with falsification of analysis records. In other words, stating that a particular sample had come back with the required level of purity when in fact it had not. So it was misconduct on the part of the laboratory, but it wasn't misconduct on the part of the laboratory that would result in an adverse impact to the city necessarily if that were to happen here. It's misconduct on the part of the laboratory that could result in the loss of their license because they're certifying results that were not accurate.
That seems to be problematic.
Yeah. We did have, I was approached by a group that was interested in Buellton because we are so close to so many crops, Santa Rosa Road in particular. The state licensing is very strict. You have to be a licensed chemist in order to work in these facilities, which I thought would perhaps bring some nice paying jobs to our community. They go out, what I understand is they're given direction by the state that they go to this grower and they're looking for this plant, and they clip 2 or 3 leaves off of the plant, put it in a baggie, take it to the lab, test it for for chemicals, for sprays, for things that aren't supposed to be on it. They print the results, they return the baggie back to the grower. What they keep in these labs is minimal, and under tight security. The state has a lot of very stringent laws, and I just thought it would be, that's something the council should talk about and decide what direction we want to go at. Since our rules right now are absolutely nothing, what can we allow and what don't we want to allow? So that's
some would decide because just consensus and then put it on a future.
right. Just discussion and direction.
I'd like to see the lab if it's something that's not a nuisance, and like Peggy said, if it's an odor nuisance, then we wouldn't want it in town. But I don't think that would be a problem. If
No,
to me, wouldn't mind pursuing that.
I agree.
I'd agree.
Ed?
Consensus.
Okay. So staff will do a little more research and we'll bring this back at a future agenda
Yeah.
for with a,
Very strict wording.
with a draft ordinance to
Very, very
allow
strict
that.
wording.
Yes,
All righty.
we'll do so. Thank you.
And
Okay. The second part of the item this evening addresses the commercial sale of cannabidiol products. The CBD is short for the cannabidiol. This is a byproduct of the cannabis plant, or the cannabis marijuana, or the cannabis hemp version. It's non-psychoactive, and so it can be sold in certain locations, depending on how it's derived, without having to go through the cannabis licensing process. So it's a little complicated, but let me walk you through it really quick. There are two basic derivations of this CBD. One is hemp-derived CBD, the other is cannabis-derived CBD. So hemp, industrial hemp, is of the same species as the marijuana or cannabis plant, but it is a non-psychoactive version of the plant. So the the compound that they're extracting from this plant, the CBD, does not have any THC in it, and so as long as it's derived from the hemp, it can be sold as a lotion or as an oil without having to go through the cannabis licensing process. It's only legal to do that, however, if it's a non-food product. Currently, under state health and safety laws, if it's a food product or a food additive, it cannot be sold at all, regardless. There is currently legislation pending, Assembly Bill 228, which would remove that restriction and allow this hemp-derived CBD to be sold as a food product without any type of regulation. The other type of CBD product is a cannabis-derived CBD product, and under Prop 64, this was completely legalized. However, because it's cannabis-derived, it can only be sold under a retail cannabis license, or commercial cannabis license, which under current city code is not permitted, or is prohibited. Under state law, it can be sold, but it would need that license, and in order for the state to grant the license, the city would have to authorize the granting of that license. So the question, or the discussion before the council this evening, as staff sees it, is what, if any, action is the city council interested in taking as far as the sale of CBD? Staff can tell you that at this point, as long as it's a non-food product, the sale of CBD out of the grocery store, the drug stores, as long as it's hemp-derived, does not require any action on the part of the city.
it's totally legal.
It's good at this point, as long as it's hemp-derived. Anything that's cannabis-derived would require this amendment to the municipal code. So we will take any direction the city council would like to give staff with regard to this.
Okay, I do have a speaker, but before that, does council have any questions for our city manager?
Yes, Madam Mayor, you can, we could bifurcate this and just say only hemp-derived products as far as this goes.
It's not necessary to even do that. If
already
the city council does nothing, hemp-derived products are permissible.
The ordinance is currently written, excludes hemp from the definition of cannabis in the list. So we've defined cannabis and said commercial cannabis facilities and sales are illegal,
Right.
but the definition of cannabis specifically excludes hemp. So as the city manager said, if you want to continue to allow hemp-based CBD, and if the bill passes hemp-based CBD food products, take no action tonight. The action tonight would be if you want to consider allowing cannabis-based or cannabis-derived CBD products to be sold in town, and then you can give us direction on what you'd like to see.
Okay. No other questions? Then I open it up to the public. We have one speaker, Jamie Dietenhofer. Step on up.
All righty.
Thank you, Mayor and Council. The direction that I'm hoping to get from you guys is we have an opportunity to make a seltzer, a CBD seltzer from 100% hemp. So it's hemp-derived. There are items that are sold currently, the old Nielsen's and Albertsons and those things that are, say, 100% hemp-derived CBD. It's the same concept. So if you see those, a Sprig makes one, Recess, and a few others that are sold here in the Valley. We're not looking to sell it here. We're looking to just package and manufacture. So I know that you were talking about the retail sales. We're not looking to do retail sales of that here per se. We're looking to move that through a distributor to make the 100% CBD derived from hemp seltzer. So I'm just trying to seek direction from council and attorney and city manager on if that's something we do proceed with. There are many costly steps that we have to go through from a food standpoint to make that available, but we don't want to go that route if we don't get guidance from you guys, so we won't take that step. So we just wanted to see before we make that investment if that's something that is allowable with the city of Buellton to do a hemp-derived seltzer, to package only, not retail.
All right.
So, all right, thank you.
Oh, thanks.
Thank you very much. Okay, no other speakers, so I'm closing it, bringing it back to council. Gentlemen, when is this bill supposed to go through?
I would anticipate in the next couple of months, but there's no way to be sure. Apparently, it's been through both the Assembly and its committees and the Senate and its committees, but I don't know when it's scheduled to come to the floor for a vote.
Is that pertaining to,
Yes, this is AB 228, and it would, if adopted, would remove any state restrictions against the sale of the CBD.
Hemp
hemp-derived
CBD to
CBD.
be
But that-
ingested.
Food product.
that'd be something that he would have to worry about, not us.
What I would suggest is, this is something that the state's moving forward on, regardless of what the city does tonight. Staff will follow along and make sure we understand when this takes place. I'll be happy to inform Mr. Dietenhofer when that happens. And at that point, there's no further dealings with the city he needs to do to undertake that operation.
Well, if that passes, it's a moot point anyways.
Well, that's just it. I mean, at this point, we don't need, the city doesn't need to do anything either way. But I'd be happy to keep an eye on it and let him know when it gets through the state, and then he can proceed with.
So the alternate would be that the city would move ahead for an ordinance that would allow manufacturing of, you can't do that without the state.
With the hemp-derived CBD, I'm not sure that the city needs to do anything.
Okay.
The only issue is that it's a food product because it's going into
Right.
water to be consumed.
Right.
And that's a state issue. It's not a city issue. We don't have any action to take, but we'll keep an eye on it.
So if they do that, then we can allow manufacturing of it as well.
Yes, we would, under our zoning code, allow that kind of manufacturing, yes.
Okay.
Madam Mayor, but currently, we can't supersede the state law anyways, right? We couldn't allow them under a city ordinance because the state law prohibits
To
it.
manufacture?
Correct. We can't allow it now because the state doesn't allow it. We could do, if you wanted to go the opposite of what Mr. Dietenhofer suggests, you could do what you've done with cannabis-based CBD and cannabis-based products in general and say that you're going to disallow any manufacture or sale in the city. Doesn't seem to be what I'm hearing from you, but with respect to hemp-based products, you currently allow them, and he's going to wait on the state. So really what's before you is, do you want to make any changes on the cannabis-based CBD products? And we'll take whatever direction you give on that front.
Okay. Personally, I don't want to change the cannabis CBD ordinance.
I think we're good, we're
I
covered.
think we're good.
I think that just opens
I
up.
think non-action's a good action.
So,
We have our direction.
all righty. Thank you. Thank you very much. Okay, moving on. Agenda item number 5 is discussion and direction regarding Arts and Culture Committee description and possible budget amendment.
Thank you, Madam Mayor, members of the City Council. At the July 25th meeting, the City Council directed staff to prepare a description and a scope for the proposed Arts and Culture Committee, simply to establish some general parameters for the operation and function of the new group, as well as to consider a budget amendment to allocate additional funding. Staff has provided in the City Council's packet as attachment number 1 a brief scope and description of this committee as staff would propose it. The City Council can consider this, make any changes that it deems appropriate, and give staff appropriate direction. The recommendation does suggest that the City Council give us some direction on the scope, whether it's adequate or whether you'd want to see changes, as well as approve the creation of a budget line item for the operation of this committee with an allocation of $50,000, which will be memorialized at a later date as part of the City Council's budget. That'll be the next budget adjustment, which I believe is in October. Is that correct?
Yeah, that's correct.
Okay. And the key point in here that the City Council asked for was that despite the fact that we've got a line item for $50,000, that the City Council shall have the authority to allocate funding and/or resources for implementation of the committee's concepts. So that is in the scope. So if the City Council would like to give staff direction on this, we will proceed.
Okay, first of all, any questions? Okay. Now, mine, of course, was that the 50,000, we had put 50,000 per year for our biannual budget into the trails. We'd put 50,000 per year in our biannual budget for the park, and I thought we had decided to do the 50,000 per year in biannual budget for setting up arts and culture, a line item for arts and culture. So I don't know if you guys are still into the idea of setting up a 2-year commitment to arts and culture. It would be a line item, it would sit in a budget line, and as our budgets are living, breathing objects, that it doesn't have to be used, and it's just showing a commitment to the community that we are completing the last of our vision items. So I don't know how you guys feel about that. I do appreciate the definition, the membership, the scope. I thought it was put together very well. I see you and Kyle worked very well together. And I appreciate that. Are there any questions
I have
before?
a question, but I have an issue.
Okay, let's finish questions first. I don't have any public comment. Peggy? Then we'll bring it back for issues.
Good evening, Mayor Sierra and council members. As I spoke on May 9th about this, I support this. You know, the funding, the creation of the Arts and Culture Committee. I think the definition is good. I think it gives good structure and bones to it. Trying to decide how a committee would be selected would be, of course, still need to be discussed, but I think it lays down the fundamental rules of what a committee would be like, and the definition I like. So I think Kyle and Mr. Wolf did a great job. Thank you.
Thank you very much. No other public comment?
Madam Mayor, could I, Peggy, well, I've just had a question. Do you feel that there would be an entity, and it would have membership, so would have, for the lack of a better word, bylaws or rules to operate by, so people don't just show up in town, you know, passing through and join the arts and culture group and receive something that costs the city money and doesn't really nurture the culture of the concept of arts and culture in our city of Buellton.
Well, my understanding is that arts and culture would be basically things that would benefit Buellton.
Right.
So the committee, then whoever they were selected for that, and however that's done, would be maybe a 5 to 7 member committee, and so they would have to write their guidelines, and this is going to take a while, you know.
That's what I was asking. Because
Yeah,
in the
and
absence
so-
of it, our last discussion, we had nobody
Sure.
was stepping up to that and thanking
Right,
you.
right.
Put the
Yeah, well, and
bridge
like I
around.
said, I think the guidelines kind of spill out enough to where the committee can then say, okay, well, we could work with this and see what we can do, what can be done in this town for you know, elevating our arts and culture. I think it's needed, and it's what people, you know, want to make their lives more fuller and you know, just special. So, you know, I think it's definitely doable, and it's going to have to be in baby steps. There's not going to be something that is going to happen overnight. I definitely wouldn't want to think that it's going to be just gangbusters off the bat, that whatever the programs would be vetted with the committee would then come to you, and they would have to have a whole package presented as to, what it is and how much it costs and the whole bit. And so I think you'd be happy with the process. Process has to be fine-tuned, and that's what the committee would do the first, 6, 8 months or whatever it would be. So.
Doesn't even have to take that long if it has process.
But it will take some time. You don't want to rush in to create, you want to create a good foundation or cornerstones for this committee so that it can be successful. So if you rush into it, you're going to have less of a chance, and you're going to have problems that you have to solve later on. We see that with a few other things happening in the county right now. We want to do it right from the get-go, so that takes time, and I think we can do it. Thank you.
Well stated. Thank you for
Thank you. This is,
redescribing it.
Vice Mayor, this is not like somebody who builds beautiful statues for the avenue. I know where you're going.
Let's go here.
And left the city with a bill. I know where you're going,
Yes, okay,
and
thank
this
you.
is not, that's not what this is about.
Didn't want to assume it, but I wanted to
I
guard against
knew
it happening
exactly
again.
where you were going with
Okay.
that one. Any other questions? Then we can get into issues. Councilmember
Ready?
King?
Yeah, my issue is with this clause, it says membership on the committee is not proposed to be limited only to city residents, but it encompasses a broader San Ynez Valley area to take advantage of talent and expertise that can enhance the benefits of the committee. That, to me, if we're going to use taxpayer money, all the people on the committee should be Buellton residents. At some point in time, you might have one person that's from Buellton and the rest of them are all from the valley somewhere. I mean, how is that really focusing just on the city of Buellton? I mean, that's like saying, oh, well, you don't really live in the city, but you can be on city council. Certainly people from outside the committee that live outside the city of Buellton could come and give input like people do to this board. Can certainly come to their meetings and have input, but I think as a voting base for your committee, they should all be Buellton residents. I mean, we're forming a committee with taxpayer dollars for this city, and I'm certain that you can find 5 to 7 people in the city of Buellton that would be on this committee.
Question?
I have a comment.
John?
Well, I think that it's going to be the people that are on this committee, and then you could have a famous artist in San Ynez, you could have whatever. You could have people that are going to be the same kind of people that come to the Botanic Gardens, or the same kind of people that come help with the dog park, all that, which should be inclusive to the whole valley. It's going to be our decision what to spend money on, but I would think it would be good to have people in the whole valley that are people that are of stature, more or less, with the arts and culture, that would be someone to list to. We're not going to pay them. They're not going to get a salary to sit on a committee. The committee is going to be a volunteer thing, as far as I understand. And it's not going to be any expense to have somebody, and if there's somebody we don't like, then we can just vote them off the committee, or...
And the arts and culture would benefit Buellton.
Yes, and if they brought all their talent,
here.
and it was in Buellton, it would be something that everybody, I would like to see it more of a, and I know what you're saying about, but if we don't have the talent, and we have somebody that's very talented in the valley that would come over and spend their time with us, like all the other things that happen, they all come and give to the thing. I think that'd be more.
I think too, when you include the valley, our San Ynez Botanic Garden is becoming well-known, not just in the valley, but in Santa Barbara County. And I think a lot of that is because we have board members from all over the county, all over the valley, that are involved with this. And all of a sudden, Buellton is being looked at a little bit differently. They're looking at us like, we've got this beautiful botanic garden. We have a dog park that has board members from all over the valley too, and this is the dog park that everybody in the valley comes to. I just think Buellton is getting a really nice reputation for what we're doing in our community, and if we can use experts throughout the valley to help Buellton achieve where we're going, I think that's a wonderful I agree with you. I think that's great. Other issues, other concerns?
No, I see both sides.
I do too.
I would think that if it would be, when they come a time to write in some bylaws, that we do say we'd like to see a majority, whether it's 5 out of the 7, are Buellton residents. And I think you do get a better, not a vision, but you get more ideas. And this is, having lived here in the valley all these years, you know, Buellton has always been the stepchild. And having lived in San Ynez on big ranches and places that, you know, we are getting a great reputation. And we're on the forefront of doing the movie thing. We're looking at having the open street. And people are talking about that and saying, okay, hey, you guys are being progressive. This is the same way. I just think with Dave's issue, I see both sides of it. We need to just have a good, happy medium. I think that whether it's written or stated, that 5 out of 7 need to be Buellton residents, because we are paying this with taxpayer money. We need to have some concern for that.
I say we look at the applications and see where they come from. This is strictly a volunteer job.
Right.
So
It's
it'll
going
be
to be run by
interesting
us. I mean,
to see.
It's going to be run by Buellton Council, so it's not
Absolutely.
going to be, they're not coming to take anything.
Vice Mayor, any
No,
input?
I just think that we solidify that the council does have final say, and it's that simple. I mean, I think trying to get a raise in my allowance was always an uphill battle.
Okay.
I learned how to accept no.
So are we looking at a committee made with Valley community members? Looking, perhaps trying to get a variety of Buellton, but including Valley members?
I think so.
Could we make the quorum of that committee be Buellton residents? This is, I think, what Art was alluding to.
Right.
Okay.
Is that you make the quorum,
at least
these
5.
be Buellton residents. So if you have 5, 3 of them are Buellton residents.
It's not going to matter.
7.
We have-
It still comes to council for
Yeah,
a
it's
decision.
100%.
But then we actually know we're having input from the residents of the city.
Correct.
And that's what I think I mean, we'll have final control, that's fine and dandy, but we want to be able to say, okay, hey, yeah, this is...
This is the same as if you had the Film Society and you wanted to put the Buellton residents ahead of the Film Society. The Film Society's coming to people that know what they're doing and they want to enjoy Buellton. And I think we need to draw from, not to restrict it. It'll be restricted by us, but if we have a committee that wants to give...
We have
it's something-
Councilmember Sanchez, who's going to play a role on it.
Yeah.
We will have Kyle Abello. We have I'm hoping a Buellton artist, or maybe 2, who would volunteer their time, not knowing that. And then when they decide on the number, the total group, if it's 5, then I think we should look throughout the valley for the best qualified applicants. If it's 7 members, I think we should look through the valley for the best qualified volunteers who have incredible talents that I know I do not have, to bring ideas to council for approval. I mean, you've got Kyle, you've got John. Is that okay?
Yeah, I'll concede to that.
I think Peggy had I don't know if she had an added comment, if this should be a good time to get the full input.
I just thought maybe I can help with a little bit of understanding of why I think it's a good idea to go broader with the committee. First of all, the council will have the ultimate decision, but the people on this kind of committee would need to have, lines into places that can help, we can gather extra help. Like Santa Barbara County Arts Commission, we need liaisons with organizations and groups. as well as people with expertise on managing and doing other things. And you know, I mean, an artist is one thing, but I mean, is an artist going to set up and do a great job for a committee? Maybe they will, but I'm just saying it might require more expertise than the Buellton, it's a small town, has to offer. So it doesn't preclude anybody in Buellton getting on. I mean, it should, you know, be all encompassing the valley, but I think it's imperative that we have outside of Buellton be a part of this committee, just to broaden it. Thank you.
Thank you. All righty, so do we have consensus there?
80%.
Reggie? Okay, you got that. Are we doing the 50,000 for an adjustment for this year, or are we doing the 50,000 as an adjustment for this year and for next year, since we did a biannual budget? That's your call, gentlemen.
But what is your request?
Well, you know what my request is. I mean,
just need to say
that's
it
pretty
one more
obvious.
time.
That's pretty obvious, but I appreciate your concession to the valley, and I'm
Is this for a motion or consensus?
direction.
Direct Madam Moneybags to write a $50,000 check and put it in the safe,
For this year and for next year, or just for this year?
one at a time. I
say
don't know
for
what the
both.
rush is.
It's a
I don't know if I'm
2-year.
gonna set 100.
No, we did
50,000 a year.
Budget.
And that'd be under, are we gonna have a vote on that at another
That would
time in
come
budget
back.
time?
That would come
That's
back at budget time in October. But that's,
We would need direction from the city council to do that, and authorization, I would suggest a motion and a vote on this evening, which would essentially produce the effect you're looking for. The budget adjustment in October would simply put it into the written form of the budget document, but with a vote this evening, that funding would be available.
Would that be, do you have a resolution number for that, or is that, we make one?
it would come back.
It would come back.
Okay.
It would come back. So I will make the motion that we put the 50,000 in as a line item for this year's budget and for next year's budget, under the total understanding that it doesn't have to be spent, it might not be spent at all, but that it would be there. It can be taken out, but at this point, it would be there, showing that we do have an arts and culture budget. That's my motion.
I'll second it.
Linda?
Okay, Mayor Sierra.
Aye.
Councilmember Sanchez.
Aye.
Councilmember King.
Aye.
Councilmember Mercado.
Aye.
And Vice Mayor Andrusik.
Aye, and I would just like to get back to the fact that we shouldn't be so worried when it was put in the budget, it's how it was spent or what happened to the money. I think that's what the taxpayers deserve.
I agree, and thank you, gentlemen, very, very much. That was a mistake on my part in May, and I really wanted to fix that, so thank you. Thank you. All righty. Resolution number 19-19, a resolution of the City Council of the City of Buellton, California, for the purpose of budget amendments from operational changes related to fiscal year 2018-19 budget through the fourth quarter ending June 30th, 2019. Ms. Zamora.
Madam Mayor and City Council, before you tonight is the proposed budget amendments for the fourth quarter of fiscal year 2018-19. The proposed amendments were items that were previously authorized by the City Council and will now be formalized into the FY 18-19 budget. These budget amendments only pertain to the general fund. These items include $28,000 appropriation increase to the non-departmental department to retain the services of Ralph Anderson and Associates to perform the recruitment for city manager. And the second proposed amendment is a $30,000 appropriation increase to the city attorney department to reflect the settlement agreement related to the California Voting Rights Act. The total impact to the general fund is an appropriation increase of $58,000. The current general fund budget reflects revenue over expenditures of $564,742 for fiscal year 18-19. Including the proposed appropriations of $58,000, the revised revenue over expenditures will be $506,742. And then on the staff report, I included preliminary numbers for the general fund as of June 30th, 2019. The final numbers will be presented to City Council after the completion of the final audit. But so far, the actual revenue and expenditures for fiscal year 18-19 is about $1.9 million, which is 337% over budget. And that's already included with the $58,000 that was spent for the recruitment firm and the settlement agreement. The city received about 100% of budgeted revenues without the use of reserves, and the expenditures were 83% of the budgeted amount. And attachment 2 shows the capital improvement projects, and the main reason we were under budget is because we've only spent about $215,000 towards capital of the $1.3 million. And again, that's going to be rolled over into 1920. And just showing you this so you can see that the general fund has enough revenue for the appropriation increase of $58,000. And as you can see on the table on the staff report, there were 4 departments that were over budget, but overall, since the general fund budget was under budget, there is no requirement to do budget amendments for these departments because the budgetary level of control is defined at the fund level. With that, staff recommends that City Council consider adoption Resolution 1919, adopting the fourth quarter budget amendments. If you have any questions, I can answer them at this time.
Thank you. Any questions?
Very self-explanatory. Thank you.
I'd ask
job.
the audience for participation, but we don't have any, so.
Greg, you want to go sit out there for a minute?
Bringing it back to council, gentlemen.
I'll make a motion to approve resolution number 19-19 as stated.
Second.
All righty. Linda?
Councilmember Mercado?
Aye.
Councilmember King?
Aye.
Councilmember Sanchez?
Aye.
Vice Mayor Andrusik?
Aye.
And Mayor Cyril?
Aye. Thank you. City Manager's Report.
Thank you, Madam Mayor, members of the council. I just have a few items for you this evening. As Ms. Brierton mentioned earlier, I did attend the County Planning Commission meeting today. It was a long, long day.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
There were 3 items on the agenda. They failed to even finish one of them today. They started at 9 and I left at 4 and they were still going. As Ms. Brierton noted, there were 2 items on the agenda that were of note to the city. They were appeals of cannabis cultivation operations out to the west of the city. I attended the Planning Commission meeting and delivered the position of the City Council that would have requested the denial or the approval of the appeal, the denial of that permit, or at the very least to continue the item until such time as the Board of Supervisors can revisit the county policies regarding cannabis cultivation, which is what we presented them with input on about a month ago. They have continued the item, the first item, until September 11th. I'm assuming the second item wasn't even reached, so we'll take a look at that next month, and I'll keep the council posted as to what's going on there. Item number 2, I think we can all look at the news here recently and recognize that we've got issues going on nationwide that we would not have expected to see 10 years ago. And despite the fact that we live in a small, very safe community, one can never assume that a major tragedy wouldn't happen, and we see it happen all over the place. To this end, I am planning to start a very informal review of city council security, or city hall, city security measures, both within City Hall, the City Council chambers, and city operations and events. I want to bring in the Sheriff's Department and have very high-level discussions about what they feel are some improvements that may need or may be useful for us. And then I want to bring in our alarm company and look at changes. And some of the changes may include a restructuring of the city council chambers here to make it a more secure, safer environment that would allow for egress in the event of an emergency that's a little easier than what we'd find right now. So I just wanted to let you know that before we expend any funds on that. I'll be back to the city council with some details and some recommendations, but I just want to put that out there. If you have any concerns about that, please let me know.
I did tell him about your wanting to switch the council, moving
The dais over
the
there.
dais to the other end of the room, and
you can't see
that
that
Vice Mayor Andrzejczyk had suggested more video cameras up at an
Just
earlier
one.
meeting.
Just another, just two.
So
We'll
that's
look at that.
all stuff to
That's
look at, yeah.
One of my thoughts as well is that 2 cameras and better cameras that are a little more high definition would be a security measure in and of itself.
And something that doesn't have to have an operator, because apparently that was the big drawback the last time, but a camera that a person that's interested could operate so that our production, the product we're delivering to the people that want to watch what's going on, could have, it would be fuller, but it doesn't have to require a human to sit there and do it.
We'll look at our options in that regard and come back with some recommendations.
I appreciate that, thank you.
You're done?
That was, with that particular item?
Well, I have an issue on that item.
Yes, sir.
I would think that either the sheriff's department on their own, or we could maybe pay overtime for deputies that are assigned to Buellton to have active shooter training. And I don't know when is the last time you had that, but I know we had it, and it was 5 years, and I'd retired, and we still hadn't had it again. And it's very, very valuable training. You could do it in our schools, like in the off days where the students are not there, and just do active shooter training. Because you get guys that have not had that training, and you go into a situation like that, and they're like, what do we do? But honestly, when you get teams that are like mini SWAT teams, and you get that training for those deputies, it is invaluable on a situation like that.
We actually, I sent 3 of our deputies to a training trainer.
Does he want to be on the microphone so people can hear what you're saying?
What you do?
I just need to get my knee fixed.
So yes, push all those weights. Come on.
No, I haven't done that. We sent 3 deputies to it's ALICE training, so it's the run, hide, fight type of training. It's to teach civilians in an active murder, active violence situation, and we put on the training for like the Santa Ynez Jewish community. We also provide security for them now. We have a contract with them in Central Valley and provide security. So we've provided training for them, and there's another training that's starting actually Monday at Cabrillo, where we're going to be training the school staff. So yeah, we would be happy to put that on for Buellton staff and city council, and we could set that up. Mike Gwynn, and who's my community resource deputy for the Chumash, he's an instructor in it, and so is Dennis Thomas, who's our school resource deputy. And the other thing is we're working on a project for the city of Solvang. We kind of brought it up. We wanted to do like a smart city project with increased cameras and LPR readers, and so we're going to be putting together a presentation for city council at some point. The city manager in Solvang's very interested in that now for another aspect of trying to determine the traffic flow and where that traffic flow is coming from. And I don't know if we can look at that right now with LPR readers. I mean, it doesn't. I don't think it's that intrusive with because we're not giving names or addresses or identifying information, but statistical information. So there may be a vendor that.
What is an LPR reader?
So a license plate reader.
Oh.
So especially Buellton too. I mean, we solve a lot of crimes with video, and we're actually trying to put video in our own station, and we're having to do it without a lot of support. So we're just looking where we can from our budget to, and we're basically looking at Amazon and eBay and trying to put up surveillance equipment for our own station. But most of the crimes that we solve, especially property crimes, we solve them with video. So, smaller cities that have video cameras in public areas that we have access to, we solve a lot of crimes that way. And the last 3 burglaries we had in the city that were kind of related, the leads we were able to put together was because we had video of some of these people, and they ended up at another private ranch who had better video, and we were able to get that and get a license plate off of that video and track down a suspect. So we're still working on those. We have a suspect that we have a warrant for on one of those, but it's video, and it's something that I think it's a great idea to enhance that. And so,
I have a question for Eddie. I appreciate Dave bringing it up. Years ago, we had a rod and gun club here, and I don't know if it's still active or not. They have it's a 25 meter, I think at a 50 meter range. It's right out by the PG&E's on the Holland Park Road.
It's still active. That's a gun and bow club. We used to actually shoot there.
And then
we did our training there.
Right, and that's what happened. And as a business person, we were able to go through the highway patrol. Really came down, and they would help you. Take your weapon apart, put it back together, and so you don't shoot your foot off or arm.
Yeah, Highway Patrol still has a contract with them out here, and we're actually trying to piggyback off of that to do some more training.
It would be nice. I think the citizens would. It would be a nice step for an organization. People needing to join something to be a member of it, and maybe we could convince them to join and be more active in the community. We're always, we always get right down to we need more public participation at all of our committees, and I'm happy that, and it's just something that's been on the back burner for me, but I'd like to see us be able to use that again. Otherwise, I think it's Lompoc is the next one.
Yeah. Well, Eddie, where's the SO specifically in active shooter training?
Where
I mean, are you guys doing active shooter training within the department?
Yes. Yeah.
I mean, is that ongoing? I mean, 'cause here's what my issue was, is we had it, and then 5 years later, there's no active shooter training. So you've got new guys who've never had that training. So what my suggestion is that if the SO department-wide is not doing it on a regular basis, I'd say that we could allocate funds for overtime for you guys to do it here specifically in our town, in our schools.
A trial.
We can do that, and we've actually started doing a little bit of that. And so the active shooter training for like civilians and kids is really scaled down. It's a different training. It's not as intense as like a law enforcement training where we would go and
that's what this is what I'm getting at.
Yeah.
If the department is not doing it department-wide, then we could do it for the deputies, not so much the schools and the teachers.
For the deputies.
For the deputies.
Department.
Yeah.
And this is what I'm saying. We would have it, and then 5 years later, we, maybe would have it a refresher training again.
Yeah.
What I'm saying is, so there's a lot of new people that come into the department, people move on, whatever the case is. But what I'm saying is the active shooter training, yes, is valuable for teachers, students, duck and cover, locked doors, all that, but the training itself for the deputies, because what I alluded to earlier is that, you get a new guy that has never had the active shooter training, he's only gone through, the academy, he's on the job, and he's assigned to Buellton and there's a shooting, or any other town for that matter. This is why I don't know why they don't have it, quarterly for every department in the country, to have deputies actually train active shooter. Have you done that training?
Yes.
Okay, so you know what I'm talking about.
Yeah.
If you got a guy that's, or two guys on your squad and they've never had it, and you're like, oh, okay, great, now we got to go do it ourselves. So my suggestion would be is that we have brought this subject up, is that if your department is not going to have it on a regular, then we could have it here for our deputies.
Yeah.
And this is something you could get together with Scott and maybe do some active shooter,
Yeah.
and even bring the Solvang guys over, because it's going to be, if you had one or two guys here, they're going to come from over there. I mean, I'm basically saying people in the valley should have that active shooter training.
So like at the rec center, something like that, we would
Right.
have.
Or
something
even
on.
even use the schools. We used La Colina School
Okay.
and went through all the hallways, and did the button hook and all that, and the guy in the back, all that active shooter training I think is very valuable. And I'm honestly surprised that all departments don't do it all the time.
I would love to do it quarterly. I mean, if we did it here, so we started this program called Culture 36. Station 36 is our station, and so it's like, what do the deputies want their culture to be? Is it, do we do the minimum standards, or do we do above that? Do we train more frequently than the minimum that we're required to? Do we look at physical fitness and emotional health? And we just had our kickoff barbecue yesterday, and we had deputies, and we were there from, I was there at noon, and from noon to 9 p.m., so deputies who were working nights or working days could come by and have a barbecue and talk about these issues. And so that's what we're doing with the arrest control room. We're going to do more enhanced training, and we're working with the Highway Patrol too. So if we did this, it'd be great to have the Highway Patrol involved with the active shooter training as
We
well.
did it with the PD guys.
Yeah,
Right.
because they're going to be our backup.
Yeah, mutual aid.
They're going to be in Buellton if something happens, and we're all going to respond. So it's good to be on the same page. At the end of August, I'm going with a couple deputies with the Chumash security, and we're going to go to a training, and then we're going to come back and work on like active shooter type training with the Chumash and in that area. And then our department later on in the year is going to put together a department-wide active shooter, because we haven't had it in a long time. So, but that's a great idea, and that's exactly what we were thinking of, is more training and how we can work with some of the other allied agencies. So, when we do go into a situation, we know what to expect.
Yeah, so you can pass that on to Bill. Tell him let's get it done.
Yeah, we can talk more about it. Yeah, and the Alice training, which is like the civilian side, it's we have a whole presentation on this, and so Mike Wynn's done it, and he's done a really good job on that. And so he could come in at council if you wanted to, put on a training, or go to like city staff and put on training.
Love to have a couple of staff trainings at City Hall and in our different facilities, so.
Yeah, absolutely. Anytime you want to.
Great.
All righty.
Anything on that item? Anything more? The last item I have is just a little bit of staff news, staff announcements, let's say. I'm sure that most of you have heard that Bobby, our parks foreman, has announced his retirement as of the middle of September. And so we are sad at losing him, but happy for him that he's getting to retire, and we'll have an opportunity to formally recognize him at our September meeting.
Good.
And lastly, just a little bit of bragging about some of our staff, in particular this month, our field staff. You may recall several weeks ago we had an automobile accident out on 246 in front of Jack in the Box, and collision between two vehicles. One of them flipped over and sheared off a fire hydrant. And two of our field staff were out there right away. Joe Grauer and Joe Velasquez responded immediately and managed to shut the water off, keep the street from flooding and the vehicles from floating away. And then several days later, Joe Velasquez and Juan Gomez went out, and rather than hiring a contractor to come out and do this, physically replace the fire hydrant themselves, saving the city, I don't know how much money, but a considerable amount of money from having someone else come in and do it for us. So I just wanted to brag a little bit for them and let the council know what our staff is doing. So with that,
Thank you. Please thank them.
Can we give them a commendation for that?
It's up to you.
Written commendation? I mean,
Yeah.
we can have you write it, we'll sign it.
I think that's in their job description. I don't think it's a.
Come on, everybody needs a pat on the back, John.
I appreciate you sharing that with us, and we're very proud to have the staff we do. Thank you. Thank you. All righty, Mr. Murphy.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. The council will now adjourn into closed session for one item as set forth in the agenda. It's pursuant to Government Code Section 54956.9D2, facts and circumstances that may result in litigation against the city, but which the city believes are not yet known to the potential plaintiff. Thank you so much.